Let's talk about the terms PreTest and PostTest. These terms talk about when the check of the loop happens in the process. As you recall, the start always happens first, and then can be followed immediately by the check, and then the action and step afterwards. This is called a PreTest loop. Or the action and step can happen after the start, and then the check is performed at the end. This is called a PostTest loop. Let's think about the three loop styles we've been discussing. Here is a simple example of the while loop. Is this a PreTest loop or a PostTest loop? Think about it. If you think PreTest, you're correct. Since the check happens immediately after the loop starts, this is a PreTest loop. Now look at the do while loop. Think about it. PreTest or PostTest? If you thought PostTest, you are again correct. Since the check is at the end, this is indeed a PostTest loop. Now here is the for loop. Think about it. This is really pretty easy. What do you think? PreTest or PostTest? PreTest, absolutely. It is indeed a PreTest loop and behaves very similarly to the while loop for the most part. Let's look at some other examples. In this first while loop example, you can see the output shown with the values 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 being output, and the loop stops when x is the value 5, since it causes the check to be false. The same thing happens in the next example of a do while loop, even though the check is at the end. The values 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are output, and the value 5 causes the loop to stop. This for loop does exactly the same thing. The output values of 0 through 4 are shown, and 5 causes the loop to stop. So you may be wondering, what is the deal about PreTest and PostTest? Well, to help clarify, let's look at some other examples. What is the output of this next loop? Look carefully, stop and think about it. What is the output? The answer is nothing. There will be no output. Why? Because the starting value of x, which is 5 in this case, immediately makes the check condition false. The loop never acts. Okay, what about this one? Look at this do while loop. Think about it for a minute. What is the output? The answer is 5. Whoa, stop! Wait a minute. There's not supposed to be any output here. The 5 makes the check false. But since the check is not until the end, it is output, and x even changes to 6, which stops the loop. What about this for loop? Will there be any output here? The answer is no. It is a PreTest loop and will not produce any output because the check is false from the start. The most important thing to understand is this. It is possible for a PreTest loop never to act, but a PostTest loop will always act at least once. I repeat, it is possible for a PreTest loop never to act, but a PostTest loop will always act at least once.